everybody, welcome back to Road to Master. I hope you all have an amazing day. We're starting off with the white pieces against a 1966 from Algeria. We've gone for a knight f3 because that's what we're meant to be doing. So we might as well get some practice in at least. As per usual, we're waiting for a move. They decide to go with knight to c6, also known as the Black Mustang defense. Sounds pretty cool. We could transpose into a Scotch here, but I really don't want to. So let's play d3. Seems like a thing we can do. They go for e5, and we're not playing e4. I refuse outright to play e4. I'm not liking the Scotch on its own at the minute, but a Scotch, but I don't even. It's not even a Scotch. But e4, e5 with d3 is just, it's not something I'm in the mood for at all. We'll go knight d2 to prevent them from playing e4. And we'll go bishop g2. So if they try to push, then we have knight g5, right? c3, very logical. I practically played that without thinking, to be honest. But I'm not walking into a pin. We'll get castled. And we basically get a free move because I was going to play that anyway, which is nice. So we'll just say thank you very much and get on with our day, I guess. Thank you very much, my friend. We're both likely to castle next move. Then maybe we can think about e4. Maybe we can think about e4 here. Or not. We could still go for h5. Bishop there. Queen out, takes, queen takes. Could do. Or we could push. Thing is, like, they would just take, right? They would just take. And it's not a bad position at all. But is it the position we really want? They still have bishop g4. If I can draw an arrow, gosh. Yeah, they still have bishop g4. Where's our queen going? We could go queen b3. e4 takes, pawn takes, bishop g4, queen b3. Queen b3. You just like rook b8 maybe. Seems logical. Then what? You know, then what? Could go knight g5, but you're not really threatening anything on f7. Maybe queen b3 just straight away. Let's stick with what we know. Let's stick with what we know for now. We'll go h4. I don't think that's necessarily a good move. They decide to not go for it, though. And play h6, presumably to stop anything getting to g5. I wasn't really threatening that, though. We could try trade off the knight with knight takes e4. I think we're going to have to go e4. Like, we can't live this cramped forever. I was hoping a bit more from them. But I don't think we can live this cramped forever. We have to strike at some point, right? And if knight takes, we could always go knight back to d2. Ideally, get the bishop out first somewhere, although there's not many squares for it to actually go. If we go knight takes as well, potentially we're opening up f5 ideas for them, but maybe we've got checks that can be played. But bishop can't block if they play f5, which is good. But if we take with the knight and they decide not to take, then we're potentially permanently weakening our d pawn, right? We'll take with the pawn. It's sensible, right? It's sensible. And now we're sort of stuck defending this a bit. They decide to go b5. What on earth was the idea behind b5? That doesn't seem right at all. What on earth? Say we go queen b3 here. What are you doing? What are you doing? Go rook there. Maybe we have knight c4. No, because they're all covered by the knight. Silly idea. Rook b8. Rook b8. Or maybe we just go rook e1, rook b3. Not really doing much spectacular though, is it? Not really doing much spectacular. Maybe just... No, I really like this pawn here. Maybe a5 then. Maybe a4. Sorry, a4. I don't know my numbers. Because I don't mind the bishop coming over here because I want to move the rook to e1 sort of anyway to free up this knight, to free up the bishop. Basically, a big chain reaction. A big chain reaction of freeing up my pieces would be appreciated. So where are they going? Where are they going? I don't rightfully know. They decide to push. And I think rook e1 here should be played. If they take, I just take back, right? And I've freed up my bishop at least. Rook e1, then I'm threatening maybe knight c4. And I'd love to do some stuff over there. So let's go rook e1. And that's staying just off this diagonal as well, which I think is healthy. What are they doing? I really don't know. So knight c4 here. I don't know what their plan is, right? I'll go knight c4. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, it's hitting the bishop, right? It's hitting the bishop. And we still have... We can move the queen sort of anywhere now, really. Just to unpin this. Like, this pin wasn't particularly scary in the first place. It was more annoying than anything, but not, like, scary. But I think us taking is scary, because not only are you getting rid of one of your bishops, you're sort of forcing that with c4 maybe. But then when we play c4, maybe this pin suddenly does become a bit annoying. So they take, which is fine by us. Again, we open up our bishop here. They don't have a knight a5. So we can take, then maybe even think about bishop a3 straight up, especially if queen there. We just sort of get our pieces active, right? Or if we do queen takes, then maybe we're threatening knight takes with the pin on the rook, right? In fact, that's actually really nice. So queen takes, queen takes. Queen takes, pawn takes, bishop a3, right? I think they would have to trade off here. Because if they don't, if they decide to move this rook and defend the... They decide to go there. Which doesn't do much, right? So takes, pawn takes, bishop a3. How do you defend this? You move this rook here. You have to move that rook there, right? Then rook a d1. And then how do you defend this again? And how do you defend this as well? I guess now we are pinned, which is annoying. But we can always do a rook lift, right? We can always do a rook lift. So I'm going to take that bishop. I'm going to get rid of it. They decide to go with the pawn. And now bishop a3. I think you might be struggling to defend it. Because we've got the fork on the rooks as well, right? We've got the forks on the rooks as well. So this is just a nice diagonal for our dark squared bishop, I think. Just nice, right? I mean, best case we get the exchange. Worst case we get the pawn, you know? If they somehow manage to defend that. And if they go d5, which isn't silly, to be fair, because they potentially have e4. So takes, bishop takes, queen takes. Maybe it's not silly. Maybe it's not silly. Maybe you lose a pawn. Maybe you lose a piece. I don't know. I've not calculated it that well. But I know for a fact it's not crazy. Well, it's not as crazy as it initially looks. You know, there is something behind it. Whether it actually works or not is a completely different question. But hey, we're not here for grandmaster level chess, are we? We're here for someone who's trying, at least, like trying a bit. Oh god. Yeah, they go knight e8, which has to feel like a concession, right? That can't feel like a move you wanted to make. So now maybe queen d5 looks nice. This is hanging, and you don't really have anywhere else to go to. I guess you go back, which is annoying, right? That's annoying. Okay, maybe not then. Maybe not then. And with queen d5 as well, you also eventually have bishop e6. Also eventually have bishop to e6. But the good news is this rook's freed, which can only be a good thing, right? Can only be a good thing. We don't have any tricks, do we? We don't have any tricks. I really want to get out of this pin. I really want to get out of this pin. But where do we move our queen? D2 seems lazy, right? I really want to stop knight a5. So maybe queen d5 isn't awful. And you just claimed you've stopped knight a5. But where are you going afterwards? Where are you going afterwards? Back to c4? It's not silly. Rook there. How do you defend the pawn? Maybe just queen d3. And you just live with the knight there. I mean, you're threatening, like, this potentially at some point, right? Though you've still got the pin, which is so frustrating. Like, it's not scary. It's just limiting the things I can do. at the minute. That's like that's it. It's not even a permanent thing. I just need to find a good place to put my queen. Takes. Nah, rook takes, you go there. No, you don't even go there. Yeah, no, you don't even go there because they got two defenders. Ugh. Ugh. I know we're doing fine here though. I know we're doing fine. How do we get rid of this bishop? How do we get rid of this bishop? It's so frustrating. Yeah. I think we just go d3. Queen d3. I think we just go queen d3. I mean, what are they doing? You go knight a5, sure. You know, you can go to b3, sure. What are you doing on b3? Not much. Not much, to be honest. And we can move this knight somewhere now. Maybe even to c4. We can't. There's not much point in going h2. Like, it kicks the bishop, sure. But the bishop stays active. You know, you go back, it just comes back. And you can't ever really go to g4 yourself. So to d2 to c4 seems like a logical choice. Then at least we're covering a5. We've added another attacker onto d6. And we're still potentially threatening knight takes e5, right? Knight takes e5. Maybe I should have thought about... So we can go knight d2 here, like still. We can still do that. There's nothing stopping us doing that. And now we're actually covering b3. Not that, again, we need to worry about b3. But we can do. We can play f3 if we need, and then maybe think about putting more pressure on the d pawn. f3, it significantly limits the power of my bishop though, but you reroute it, it's not awful. You know, it's not awful. I think knight b3 might be played. But the rook on b3 is not doing much. It's not doing much, again. So f3, the bishop probably goes back to e6. Then rook d1. Rook b6. Your queen there. I don't see what that's doing. I guess after rook b3, you're attacking that, but we always have like b4, right? We always have like bishop b4 if we need it. In fact, we could do that now. We could potentially do that now, but the knight just goes back to c6. Yeah, the knight just goes back to c6, and we've not really accomplished anything. In fact, I kind of want this to happen, because the rook gets there, then we play bishop b4. And the rook's borderline trapped. In fact, it straight up is trapped. But how do we target it is a relatively interesting question. Because we go to c3, they have a rook takes b4, and the queen's hanging. I think we go bishop f1. I think bishop f1's a useful move. So we can potentially get there before they do with their bishop, rather than giving them a tempo with f3, which defends an undefended pawn, I guess, but is a bit unnecessary. They go there, adding another attacker onto c4, but that's still fine. Now we can think about contesting the open file, but again, like, we don't really need to. We don't really need to. Maybe we should, though. Maybe we should, though. Just to do something. You know, this knight still has to be here. And that means this rook's forced to be here. So they're basically playing down 2 pieces, right? Just to defend this one pawn. So eventually we're going to get some sort of advantage out of this, surely. I mean, if we don't, I'd be very surprised. And if we can claim the open file, get the rook on b4 if we need, then we can think about knight c4. And then we're really looking at this. And if they trade off, they just trade off. Right? If they trade off, they just trade off. And the threat still stands. They've not changed the threat, right? And we even have this threat of potentially rook b7 with the bishop on c4 hitting this at some point, or at least hitting like a7, you know? So I think that's fine. And the question is, what do they do? What do they do? You go queen takes, we just get the rook straight back there, you know? So where are they realistically going? I think they might be in sort of a mini Zugzwang, which is great because I hope nothing works, right? And I know playing hope chess isn't a good type of chess to play, but you know, there's always the chance you've missed something. And you know, humans are clever, humans are tricky, and everyone's capable of pulling out an absolute crazy, ridiculous move that you've never even considered. So they've gone rook b6, sorry. Maybe I can think about... not really. So that's also defending the pawn, which is actually quite clever. Because now they've freed up their knight, right? Now they've freed up their knight. The problem is... What is the problem? I would just have to trade off, right? In fact, I can hold this. I can hold this because after they do that, we just take, right? And you take with the pawn, and then we get the fork. Like they've still got to keep the knight here because this is a temporary defender that can come off the board at any time. Maybe we even play like rook b4 ourselves, and that does temporarily block our attack, but at the same time, this is a temporary defender. This is a temporary blockage. You know, that gets traded off at any time as well. And if they take, and then c takes, all of a sudden we've got a lot of stuff happening all at once, and we get control of the c file, right? I don't think that's a crazy horrible move. And maybe like we're temporarily blocking our bishop, but after knight c6, which is, I think, the only reasonable square the knight can go to. It could go back, to be fair. That's not crazy. The knight goes back to b7 is not ridiculous. But again, we just go rook c1 and claim the open file. So I might try it. I might push my luck and try it. Because with the same idea, like, this can't still go anywhere. They go back prematurely. Wow. Okay. But now you've lost control of c4. Surely. You've lost control of c4. So if we take... I mean, queen takes, they can't do. I'm pretty sure they can't do. And they've added another defender onto this. But again, it is a passive piece. Maybe it can go to c5, but we can always take if we have to. So I think maybe I just trade off. Pawn takes, then maybe knight up. Bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes. And we've got things, you know. Or we go rook b1 is our other choice. But the knight comes to c5, right? So we need to just trade. They take with the queen. I think we're good, and we do this now. Again, threatening the pawn. They can't push this, so this is also a weakness after rook b1. So we do that, and we look to trade off now. And we're playing the bishop pair. Basically, we've transferred into a bishop pair. Late middle game, I'll say. Very early end game. But we have things like bishop d5. We even have rook d1 still. Kicking out this. We have bishop c6 as well. Kicking out this, potentially. You know, rook can take. But yeah, I wouldn't mind this. I don't think. I wouldn't mind this. So if they decide to not take, we go rook b1 and hit that. They go knight there, which was always a threat, to be fair. But after takes pawn takes, rook b1, right? And how do you defend this? Takes, pawn takes, rook d1, and then again, how do you defend this? So we just take, and we're fine. Hopefully, anyway. And we've got rid of our bishop there, to be fair, there as well. So knight c5 is probably a good move. I like it. They've decided to go that way, but now rook b1 comes. Now rook b1 comes, and I think we're going up a pawn. Either that or they trade off their bishop, which is probably reasonable, but I think eventually we still win this pawn. Or this one, after rook d6, or knight d6, sorry. Knight d6 is actually tricky, because... Oh, they go there. Oh, hitting that. I can just go f3 though. There's very little danger, I think, of the queen actually infiltrating. The rook, on the other hand, is another story, but I'm not particularly scared of that just yet. I think we go queen b3. No. No, we would go queen b5, and then we're threatening a5, or at a push c5 as well if tactics ever occur. Queen b5, rook there. No, they've defended this well. I'll give them that. They've defended this well. We've got to play aggressive, right? We have to play aggressive. But we can't let that in. I'm going queen a6. I'm going queen a6 with hopes of a5, rook b7. Then maybe even get the bishop to c4. And we're actually going for the f pawn. Potentially. It is weakening our king, but we do have a potential escape square on h3. Maybe. And the bishop can always come back if it needs to, right? If it needs to. The question is, how aggressive do they press with this, right? Because we're low on time, sure. We have increment, also sure. They decide to go there. We can check. Bishop e2, king f there. Maybe trade off the rooks. Yeah, it's dubious. It's dubious for sure. I thought about maybe getting the bishop here, but the knight covers that quite well. And we have no a5 because then you've got a discovered attack from the rook, right? You've got a discovered attack from the rook. They go king there. We'll keep with our plan. We need to try and get some time back from the increment. Very much so. They push, we just take with the queen. They have time to try and be tricky though. Yeah, so they go there. I'm going to go rook b2 and maybe look at trading off. The thing is they have no checks at all. They don't have d4. They don't have d4. They can't go to b1. So they go there and maybe they're thinking of repeating. I'm going to keep trying to maneuver. I'm going to keep trying to maneuver. I don't want to push g4. Although maybe actually it's decent. No, because you push g5, they go knight h5. And then they've infiltrated, right? Which can't be good. And I don't think taking these pawns matters because you can't really infiltrate with the rook. Here we're poking at the f-pawn, right? If they ever try to move their queen. Maybe we play h4 with goals of actually just weakening the a-pawn, right? Queen b5, and we just take it back. But then, like, I think they've got what they wanted out of it. They go there. I'm going to look to trade off the queens, actually. I'm going to look to trade off the queens. It's wild, but I think it could potentially work in our favour. I would take with the rook. I would take with the rook. They go there. Ooh. Now that's something I wasn't really expecting. That's what you call being tricky, right? But you're not threatening much more than just perpetuals. We're going back to hit the f-pawn. This is not good. This is really not good. In fact, you go there, you just take that. Oh no. So we have to go up. They take, we take, they take. Gosh, that's not nice. I don't appreciate that. I really don't appreciate that, actually. I don't think going up was the correct thing to do either. I really don't, because then they have this. And I'm scared. I'm extremely, extremely scared. We get a pawn for it. Not that it's a particularly valuable pawn either. But maybe we can hit the rook somehow. Dance around with the rook. They go there. Check. Oh, they go check there instead. Okay. Do you have any more checks? Oh no! That's... Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! To be fair, I don't think there's much we could have done about that. I don't think there is much we could have done about that. Wow. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. No, you got me. You got me good there. Let's have a look at this because this is so cool. I thought we were up there for sure. To be fair, the time got to us a bit. We spent a bit too much time. Apparently not even up at all. Wow. Wow, the bar is completely flat. Up to when they infiltrated with the queen. Wow, that is way more even than I thought it would be. Wow. that's kind of cool to see, to be fair, because I positionally thought we were better, right? I mean, we didn't have anything concrete, which shows, I guess. But yeah, I thought we had something going. So we'll play this trashy opening. For sure. They played some weird stuff. B5 shocked me a bit. And then Bishop G4 as well. Strange to me. You've opened this line. I don't see why the bishop can't go on A6 or B7 a push. So why you've pushed your B pawn just to drag your bishop to the other side doesn't particularly make sense to me. Apparently we should have taken this. Then go knight there. Don't really know. The bishop comes, we go knight c4, which looked like a good idea to us. And we keep the pawn on c3, which is stopping the infiltration of this knight. We trade off the bishops, weaken that pawn, and that forces the knight back here. And the computer actually says this is dead even, which is super interesting. Queen d3 was the correct thing to do. We spent a bit of time on that. Queen d5, apparently you just go queen c7 instead, rather than knight e7. Which, it doesn't make much difference, to be honest, either way. The knight goes to a5, we go to d2. Not only to develop this knight and free up our bishop, but to control these two squares as well. Queen goes to c7, asking more about how we're going to control the c4 square. And the bishop does the same as well, which is quite tricky. Rook b1 was the best move. And I actually quite like this. It looks like it's not really defending the d-pawn, but it's a good question. It's like, what are you actually doing in this position? And to be honest, I didn't really know. So I matched him with rook b4, which I thought was a bit clever. And the thing is, I think we take with the pawn there. Yeah, which is crushing for us. I thought knight back was a good shout. But like we said, we just get the open file. And I think we're just crushing with their lack of development from these two pieces here. But they went back, which I thought was clever, actually. Apparently, rook there is good. Which is actually threatening to take the c-pawn. Maybe rook c1. Knight f6 threatens this, potentially. And then, to be honest, I'm sort of running out of ideas. Maybe rook b... No, but you need the rook to cover that now as well. Wow. So you're actually sort of running out of moves, which is crazy. You're in a bit of a zugzwang, and they've got more pieces they can just bring in. So what are you doing? Queen f3. What if they just bring in another piece? You go c4. Can they not just take that? They've got 5 attackers. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders. So surely that could win a pawn, right? Rook takes. Bishop takes. Bishop takes. Rook takes. Oh, because your queen's not the last attacker. That's silly. I should have seen that. Okay, so we take the rook then, which is, I think we had to. And knight c4 to try hit some of these weak pawns. Knight c5 is annoying. I think we had to take. If they take this way, rook a1, apparently you just push your passer. Because the knight has to stay there and the rook has to stay there like we discussed. So this is just free to push. Wow, that's interesting. Okay. And they took there. If they take with the queen, probably rook b1 still. f4 is an interesting attempt, actually. And we threaten to trade queens, but they don't want to take. Why is that a brilliant? Why is that a brilliant? That's a brilliant. What? You're not sacking the knight, though, because you take the queen, which is more valuable. What? I don't get why that's a brilliant move. I really don't. Okay. Sure. Sure. I'll take your word for it. But f5, really interesting attempt there. But they took with the c pawn, which I think actually puts up a decent challenge, because then they can contest the open file. Trading off the bishop's smart. Only way to defend the pawn, which I think we actually overlooked, to be honest. I've got something in my eye. Oh no. Okay. And then f3, apparently a bit of a waste of a move. We go b5, queen b5. If they take, we take. And I guess you can claim this isn't really threatening promotion, and this is. So this is more valuable, which makes sense. But you've also got to actually prove it as well, which is interesting. Oh, and they should have gone knight there, forcing king g2 to defend the pawn. And then you come in and contest the open file. There. No, that looks fine. I guess maybe you're coming after the g pawn then. Looking at queen g6. Rook d1, queen g6. Oh, but then you take... Yeah. G5. Wow. But then queen d6 looks nasty, right? That's nice. So if they take, you take back with the queen. They push, you push. Or you go rook d... Anyway, this is a different line completely. Rook d8 looked good to me. And this is actually, like, relatively annoying to defend against. They've covered it quite well. Because nothing's behind the pawn, so we can't ever threaten taking c5. We can't threaten pushing a5, because then after pawn takes, we've got a discovered attack from the rook. Right? And then they're just infiltrating our weaker king. So that's actually quite a tight defense. We let the queen infiltrate here, which is silly. Actually, that's further on. A ton of misses here. Again, it's wanting this knight idea. Sort of shuffle, and then we miss this completely. Completely miss this. King g2 is just safe, right? It's still wanting this knight idea. Maybe then you can think about trading the queens. Still a blunder. Still a blunder. Wow. So it seems like the position is a lot less safe for me than it is for them, which is surprising. I guess mine's more of a long-term win these pawns, but like my weak king is definitely nothing to laugh about, you know. And then they just got me, you know. They got me. I got greedy, and yeah. Apparently that's just mate, which is fairs. But this is quite a cool way of completely just winning. So it was fun. I enjoyed it for sure. It's always interesting seeing how my evaluation differs from the objective evaluation of the game, and I think that's a good way of figuring out what your weaker points are, you know, see where you differ from the computer and things. I think I have bias towards weak pawns rather than weak positions, so I think weak pawns are the sort of heart of the position, which isn't always true, and you still have to be, they're just like a part of the position, and you still have to be aware of everything else, but focusing entirely on pawns is not going to be the correct thing, because most of the time a single weakness can and will be defended, especially against better players. So you need to be making threats at the same time as making other threats as well, and try create two weaknesses to exploit, because one weakness can be defended, two is harder, still can be done. But the more weaknesses, the better. You know, focus on the whole board and not just on one pawn. I think it's something I really need to consider, I guess. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Please like if you liked. Please subscribe if you really liked. And I'll catch you guys all tomorrow. Bye-bye.